Hey everybody, this is Jay Young, and it's the new edition of the Jay Young Show. We're really excited today to have Mr. David Feherty. Man, I mean, how about a guest like that? David, welcome to the Jay Young Show.
Yeah, thank you.
My goodness.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We've known each other for a while now, going through different events or, your big military. We're going to talk about military. We're going to talk about charity, military stuff. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about, let's kind of get started with you first and you growing up in Northern Ireland. So can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Well, Kenneth Branagh has just, a relatively recent film called Belfast. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but that was essentially my childhood. I grew up just outside Belfast in a place called Bangor during the Troubles in, the late 60s, all through the 70s, early 80s, that kind of thing. I was growing up in that area, and, people have a tremendous sense of humor there because you have to. You got bombs going off, you got riots, troops on the street, roadblocks, and that was just sort of normal for me, growing up in that atmosphere. It was, to be honest with you, it was a great place to grow up. Kids were safe. It was a great standard of education. Not that I took much advantage of it. I quit when I was 17. The whole school thing didn't agree with me, but no, it was an unusual place to spend your childhood years, shall we say?
So you say it's a great place to grow up, but there's bombs in the streets.
Yeah.
So how does that? We didn't have bombs in the streets in Sulphur Springs, Texas. I mean,
no. No, but it was very localized, the pockets of violence and this kind of thing. And it was back in the days of, you can't call it still terrorism, but, they would phone and say there's a bomb, everybody get out.
Wow.
That was generally the way they did it. It was sort of property damage. People still got killed, of course.
Wow.
It's still terrorism.
Right.
But you generally knew when it was going to happen.
Okay. Interesting. So you grow up, you're out of high school, I guess, if they have high school like they do here pretty much, and you're 17 years old, and then what happened right after that?
Well, I was in a geography class, and they were teaching me the average rainfall in Western Samoa, which I didn't think was going to be useful no matter what I planned to do later in life. And I was a classic attention deficit child long before kids were diagnosed with any kind of learning difference. I was definitely in that category. I couldn't concentrate on things that didn't interest me. And music and English were the only two things that interested me in school. I excelled at those. I actually trained to be a singer for a while, and fortunately, I got out of that. And you're welcome, America. No, that's the last thing. I figured it out at the last minute. The last thing the world needed was another mediocre Irish tenor clutching the bar and butchering Danny Boy, So the only other thing that I could do was play golf, and I wasn't very good at that either. I had a 5 handicap when I turned pro. I had to lie about my handicap in order to get an assistant pro's job.
Wow. So you're on the tour. How long are you on the European tour?
The best part of 20 years.
About 20 years. Okay, good. Because you had some wins there.
Yeah. I had 5 wins in Europe and 5 around the rest of the world.
Okay.
So, I think I won about £3 or £4 million, in prize money, which is like a bad weekend for Rory McIlroy now. It took me 20 years to do that.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. And you had the Dunhill. You won the Dunhill.
Yeah, it was the world 3-man team championship at the time, and we won that in 1990. I captained the Irish side that won that. That was one of the highlights, I think, because it was at St Andrews. And anytime you win at St Andrews is special.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. That's great. Because did you play different courses in that golf tournament?
No,
like they did at Pebble,
it was always just the old course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we were there this summer. We couldn't get on. So
yeah, it's bribery.
Oh my goodness, it was.
Yeah.
But anyway, but then you win. I think the last tournament you won was the Scottish Open.
Yeah, I won the Scottish in '86. The Italian Open I won in '86 as well. The Italian one was an interesting one. They gave us courtesy tricycles. You know, you get a courtesy car here. Well, it was played in Venice, and the island that it was on called Albarella, and it was so low. It was only about 6 inches above the sea level, so they didn't allow any vehicles on the island. So they gave us tricycles.
Oh my goodness!
To get to work from. So I mean, I've got the Italian Open trophy in a basket in the front of my tricycle, like tring tring scusi, you know, like going out through the crowd. And
oh my God!
Bizarre. They could only happen in Europe, you know. Not happening here anytime soon.
I'm such a huge fan, and I just can't wait for you to say something. I don't know what's going to come out of your mouth or what like the rain in Somalia and have that to do with education. And I never know when you're gonna joke because you just entertain. You've entertained so many different people. And
well, I'm entertaining myself.
Yeah.
If anybody else is, that's a byproduct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you can laugh at your own jokes, right? That's pretty good.
Yes. Well, you know, I try not to.
Okay, so let's go back. So you win the Scottish Open, and then you party with Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about that a little bit. I mean,
yeah, that's one that is kind of lost in the swirling mists of time. And, yeah, my manager, my agent at the time had been the road manager for Led Zeppelin back in the 70s, you know, when they were in their heyday. And it was, he organized backstage passes the night of the, I won the Scottish Open and was given the trophy and went pretty much straight to a Led Zeppelin concert with it.
Wow.
And I woke up 2 days later in the ferns to the left of the 16th tee at Glen Eagles, which is 120 miles away from where I won the Scottish Open or the Led Zeppelin concert. And no recollection of how I got there and no Scottish Open trophy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You still haven't found it?
Still gone. There's no romantic ending to that story where somebody's Jack Russell finds it in a hedge or something like that. Or
nobody's returned it.
No.
Nobody's. My God. How was Led Zeppelin? Was that pretty cool?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. What a great story. Well, it's a great story to be out there.
I'm lucky to have survived it.
Oh my goodness, man! To be 120 miles away in Glen Eagles. So you played the European tour, then you came over here and played on the United States tour for a while.
Yeah.
And then you retired and became a broadcaster.
Well, yeah, I only played a couple of years here, and I was offered the job because Ben Wright, the famous old English commentator, you know, he got fired for remarks that he made about the LPGA tour, and I just happened to be the right Irishman in the right bar, which was at the World Series, the old World Series of golf at Firestone. I'd qualified for that, winning some tournament in a communist country. I can't remember where it was. And I was standing at the bar at the Hilton in Fairlawn, right across from the golf course at Firestone. And I'm drinking vodka and Gatorade because I'm still an athlete. Minding my own business. And two gentlemen came across the room, and one of them stuck his hand out and said, "I'm Lance Barrow from CBS." And I thought, oh, shit, 60 minutes. This will be some fearless expose on alcoholism in sport or drugs or something, you know. And, but as it turns out, it was CBS Sports. And they offered me the job. And I was 36, 37 at the time, you know, and I thought I had some golf left in me. But then they told me how much they're going to pay me. I said, "Would you like to buy a set of clubs?" I have a set I don't need anymore. Apparently.
Oh, my gosh. Wow.
Yeah.
So they saw that in you. I guess they saw, have you ever done it before? Or what did they?
Well, Jack Graham at ABC had given me an opportunity a couple of years before at a tournament in Jamaica. And I'm not sure what it was called, but it was like an international event, you know, where they invited winners from around the world, you know, to come and play a trial in Jamaica. And I was the on-course, reporter for that, and that was the first time that I ever did it. Then at the international up in Colorado, McCord had invited me up after he had heard me in the locker room or something like that, telling stories, and he said, "Well, why don't you come on and sit with me?" And Frank Cherkinian was the producer at the time, a legendary producer, and he told McCord absolutely under no circumstances allow that stupid Mick into the tower with you. It's the last. He says, I think his words were, one idiot at a time. And so McCord looked at me and said, "Yeah, we're in." And I didn't know that Frank was against it, but I got up there and we spent a couple of hours, and it went pretty well. And then I guess it was a couple of years later, it was really Gary that gave me the opportunity, even though Jack had had demonstrated that I could do it before.
Mm-hmm.
But it was McCord who made me believe that I could.
That's great. That's great.
He's been a great friend.
But no schooling really, or
no
no.
Broadcasting school. I had to go through sensitivity training, which didn't go well either. Yeah.
Sensitivity?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Well, they get you in, and it was all the CBS sportscasters, and you basically got to sit and listen to whoever it was that was doing it. You just the obvious things, race, religion, politics, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Things that I wouldn't touch anyway, at least not on the air.
All right. Okay. So you just did the play-by-play from one of the holes, like the 18th hole or whatever. That was your major position.
I started as a course reporter for CBS, and myself and Peter Costas, we were the two guys on the ground for the most part of my career at CBS. I was 19 years there before I moved over to NBC, and almost all of it was spent on the ground, except at places like the Masters where there are no walkers. I had the 15th hole at the Masters for 19 years.
Wow, that's great. That's great. So then you get to do all the interviews afterwards. And,
yes.
I mean, throughout the whole week. And
I did the highlight show.
Who were some of the best golfers that you interviewed? With
the Golf Channel show? Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, I interviewed 170 people.
Was it that many?
Over the 10 years, that we did, I think 16 shows a year and some live shows at the Super Bowls and things like that, where we would have football guests on and, some golfers. But, I mean, everybody from captains of industry to politicians to musicians to actors to golfers to other sports stars. I was really lucky for 10 years to have had just the most amazing list of guests.
Yeah, I know. That was great. I always look forward to that. That was really good.
Yeah, I miss it.
Yeah. So Live Golf's not going to let you do that.
Well, no, it might happen.
Yeah.
Next year, we're thinking about revitalizing the show, repackaging it in a way, and maybe getting it on the air. Not a live thing specifically, but just a standalone product.
Yeah. Who were some of the best guests that you interviewed? Anybody stand out?
That's.
I like the Boom Boom.
Yeah.
Oh, Freddie, man.
Freddie was 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Of course, Freddie would take 2 episodes to tell you his name, if he can remember it.
Yeah.
No, Freddie was great. And I had 4 presidents. Matthew McConaughey, Sam Jackson, Don Cheadle. I really enjoyed interviewing the actors. Because it's a very similar thing to golf. You get up there and you really risk making a fool of yourself. If you're an actor, that's the big hurdle to get past.
Right.
And, it's pretty similar. Getting on the first tee at a Ryder Cup or at the Masters or whatever. I mean, you could make an idiot of yourself quite easily.
Right. Now, is that where you had Tom Cruise? Was there something about Tom Cruise and you working out or something? What was that?
No, well, I mean, I was diagnosed as bipolar, at some stage during this thing. I mean, I've struggled with depression, throughout, and addiction throughout my life. And he had made some comments about Brooke Shields' postpartum depression, that all she needed to do was exercise,
Right.
and that would get her out of it,
Yeah.
which is not really the way depression works.
Right.
It does help, the exercise part of it, but it's a brain chemistry thing. So I suggested that, beating the shit out of Tom Cruise would be exercise enough to cure my depression anyway,
that would definitely help.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Who's your favorite president?
He's since apologized for that, by the way.
Oh, has he really?
He's a
Okay,
good
yeah.
man. Yeah.
He understands a little more and what goes on in the.
Yeah.
That's I can understand that. Who was your favorite president? You did President Trump twice, I
Yes.
believe, but
Yeah.
who was your favorite? Who's the best personality?
I love President Bush, and I just, I love President Clinton. They were both terrific. They were all terrific, President Obama on the White House lawn, although that wasn't for the show, that was for the Olympics, I want to say. I did that one. He was wonderful as well. My son died about 6 years ago, and the first person to call me was President Clinton.
Oh, wow.
The very first person,
Wow.
the first time I answered the phone, it was him, and his friendship has meant a lot to me over the years, as has President Bush's.
Yeah, that's awesome. Trump, pretty charismatic, or
You get exactly, what you see is what you get.
yeah, I bet.
He's just larger than life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I bet. Wow, unbelievable. So my name's not David Feherty, so I can't really get those kind of guests, but what would you do if you were me? How could I get better guests or ask better questions, or if we have any podcasters out there that would like to know more about is there a key to it?
It's word of mouth and eyeballs on the screen and people listening, for my show, we had people call the show and ask to be on that I would never have guessed. Someone like Kevin Hart.
Oh, wow.
His people call and say, we'd like to do the show. But, and it was only, Kevin Hart doesn't even play golf, but,
Right.
but
he wanted to be on the show.
Yeah. He wanted to be on the show, and I'm not the quickest in the uptake, but I think he was after the audience that I had, which wouldn't be typically his audience.
Right. Right.
So, a really incredibly smart guy.
Yeah.
Fast, and, just a fascinating person. And all of these people that I interviewed over the years, they all had, one thing in common, and it's a thing that great actors and great musicians and great athletes and great businessmen, have. They all want to be in a place where they know they're going to be uncomfortable. They actually want to be there.
Right.
You think of Michael Jordan; he wanted the ball.
Mm-hmm.
They want the responsibility that comes with it.
Right.
And unsuccessful people don't want that responsibility. That's the common denominator among the people that I interviewed.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right. Wow. Well, I bet so. So if you're talking to somebody, I think consistency too is one thing that I'm missing in my podcast, because I do this kind of as a hobby, and I should take it more as a, hey, you know what, man, this is a great show. It's a great platform. I've got some great guests like you. I need to make sure I continue on with it instead of just, do an episode now and wait another month and do another, just continue asking or finding good questions, asking good questions, and then being consistent.
Well, interviewing is as much about listening as it is about asking. Mm-hmm. You want short questions and long answers. There's nothing worse than the opposite of that.
Right.
Where you take 90 seconds to ask a question, you answered it a couple of times probably, and you get yep,
yeah,
or nope. Yes, that's
that's
usually
true.
It doesn't work.
It'd be kind of boring, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
How am I doing so far? Am I doing okay? So far?
Doing great.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. So tell me more about, okay, so now you're a broadcaster, you come in and you've had your show, which I love the show, the intro, that was interesting, intro, and then afterwards you all of a sudden you're going to the Live Tour now. You're on the Live Tour, and you.
Well, I moved, from CBS to NBC, where I think I did 8 years with Tommy Roy at NBC, and it was, I mean, I've been so incredibly lucky throughout my career, whether it was playing or broadcasting, to work. And when I played, it was in the era of, Ballesteros and Faldo and, Woosnam and Langer and Olazabal, these players that were coming across and making the majors more competitive, winning the Masters, making the Ryder Cup more competitive. And, when I turned to broadcasting, I worked with Frank Chirkinian and Pat Summerall and, Jim Nance for so many years with Tommy Roy and Dan Hicks and Lance Barrow. I've worked with Al Michaels, Chris Collinsworth. I've worked the Olympics, the winter and summer games. Why they sent me to Korea in the winter, I have no idea. But I did it anyway.
Oh my gosh!
The Ryder Cup, the President's Cup, all 4 majors for networks. I'm not sure if there's been another broadcaster that has covered the whole lot of them like that. I mean, they're very few and far between. So I've been incredibly lucky.
Wow, golly, you put the miles on.
Yeah,
and definitely put the miles on, and definitely the deal. So who would be in your foursome if you said, "Hey, okay, I get 3, or I'll say 3 or 4, I don't know. But you said, hey, I've got the keys to the Masters. Of course, it's not a big deal for you to play the Masters. It'd be life-changing for me, of course. But for you, it wouldn't be a deal. But if you had your favorite course, they said, hey, you got 3 or 4 people, and you could pick anybody, who would you have?
Alive or dead?
Alive or dead. Which
okay. Well, I would play with Jack because he's the only one. I mean, I played 9 holes of a practice round with him in Atlanta way back when, but I never got to play with him in competition. I played with Arnold 3 times, played with Lee Trevino, who was my hero growing up, and still is to this day.
Oh, my gosh.
I played with Tom Watson, and he became a great friend. I would play with Jack. I would play with my dad one more time. And I might play with my son, who I lost, 6 years ago.
Well.
And Annika Sorenstam.
Really?
Never played with Annika, and she's the greatest female to play the game as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I'm glad you said your son. Did your son play golf?
He didn't really. Yeah, he played at it.
Yeah.
He would go out and, I'd give him a few lessons, which he wouldn't listen to.
Yeah. Typical. Yeah. Wasn't old enough to listen yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know what age that is that we get to that where we start listening.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm an alcoholic, which I've told everybody on the show, and I've talked a lot about, my story about me drinking in high school and college, and then driving down, and it's kind of like I just got tired of waking up at, going down the highway or something, when I was drinking. And so I had DWIs, and, so I quit drinking in 1995, January 1st, 1995, because I got really, New Year's Eve. Yeah.
New Year's
I had
resolution.
A great, yeah. New Year's Eve was but on my second time, my second official time was probably like my 12th time or 50th time. I said, I'm just going to quit, all the time. But this was really one of those that I did quit for the second time for a stretch of more than 2 days or something,
Right, yeah.
And I quit then, and I haven't gone back. But I know you've got a story about yourself and about sobriety. And just for the listeners out there, I know there's people that have a lot of fighting with depression or with alcoholism or whatever.
Yeah.
What do you normally tell people when they ask you something about your story, or what kind of advice would you give other people?
Well, mine's a cautionary tale, really. I started drinking when I was about 14, I suppose, and it is strange the way that it happened. We're on a holiday. The only time I think we'd ever gone abroad as a family, we went to Austria, and it was in a parking lot in Salzburg. Well, it was in a restaurant first. I tried a little of my father's wine. It was kind of this sweet peas porter wine. I thought, well, that's not bad. But my dad said, oh, really? He said, drink the whole glass. So I drank the whole glass, and that was the day I started drinking.
Oh, yeah.
Because it felt pretty good. And I don't know when I can't put my finger on when it became a problem because I was so good at it. I didn't get hungover. I was a good drunk. The life and soul of the party, that kind of thing.
I bet you were funny. Well, you're already funny.
Probably was. Yeah, probably funny.
Funnier, yeah.
Yeah.
Funniest, or?
Yeah, but as the years went by, and then we got the drugs involved as well. There was a lot of cocaine at one stage, which is a seriously bad drug for anybody.
Were you on the tour then, broadcasting?
Oh, during, yeah, no, not while I was playing. This is more after. And it really just sort of snowballed to a place where it was in the off season, I remember, and my daughter was about 5 or 6, and she kind of crawled into my lap, and there was a bottle of Bushmills on the table just to my left, and it was almost empty, and she looked at me, she put her nose right on mine, like this, with a little grin, and she says, Dad, you need another bottle.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And that was the sort of the beginning of it for me. I mean, there were several attempts that were unsuccessful, but I was doing a made-for-TV thing in Prince Edward Island in the Maritimes up in Canada, where it was Jack Nicklaus versus Tom Watson. And the Canadian TV, they hired me to be the on-course reporter and to interview the two players, before. So it was the night before, and I'd already interviewed Jack, and he was sitting with Barbara, just behind in the upstairs of the clubhouse. And I was in the depths of a really bad depression at this stage, just and drinking to knock the edges off it, and Vicodins, anything I could take, to make me feel different, just different to the way that it felt was better than. The way that I felt. It's just when people ask me, what is depression? When I get sad, and saying, well, everybody gets sad, but depression is sadness minus hope, and that hope is you can't live without that. You can live without money, without love, without a lot of things, but you cannot live without hope.
Yeah.
And upstairs in the clubhouse, I asked Tom, the first question, and he just kind of looked at me funny. I didn't know him particularly well at all at this time, and he put his hand over the lens of the camera, and he said, "You're not well, are you?" I was taken aback. I said, No, I'm not. I said, "How do you know?" He said, "Oh, I can see it in your eyes."
Wow.
And I said, "Well, what do you see?" And he said, "I see my reflection."
What?
And I didn't know that Tom was an alcoholic. He had been sober for a number of years at that point, and he said to me, "You need to come with me." And right now I'm backpedaling. All I can think of is the bottle in the room. And, I said, "To where?" He said, "To Kansas City." I said, "We're in the Maritimes. We need 2 float planes and a kayak to get to Toronto. How are we going to get, to Kansas City?" And I hear in the back, "I have a G5. And I turn around and I'm being heckled by Jack Nicklaus and kidnapped by Tom Watson. And
God,
that was 2006. And,
wow.
That was the day after, when they played the match, and Jack had, I'm old and I can't play anymore. And, he won.
Oh, my God.
66 to 68, something like that.
Golly. Wow.
Jack flew me and Tom, and that was the start of, and I don't have perfect attendance, but that was the start of it for me, and I'm sober right now.
Good for you. Congratulations. That's it's hard. It's not easy.
It's hard every day.
Yeah.
And I'm not what they call in recovery, because there's no such thing as recovery.
Right.
People, I love these commercials on the TV say, "Well, I used to be an addict." Yeah, no. Yeah, you are an addict.
Still, every day.
Yeah,
Every day we fight it.
every day, or you weren't
Yeah.
to start off with.
I got pissed off.
I'm a dry drunk.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I am.
Absolutely. No, we all are.
But I'm dry.
Yeah.
It's a struggle every day.
Yeah. I appreciate that. It really is. Well, I was at, we're in Cabo this weekend, and we're at this place, Rosa Negra, and this waiter comes to me and he says, "What would you like to drink, sir?" And my wife got a lychee teeny, whatever that is. And I said, "I'll take a Diet Coke." He goes, "What?" And I said, "Diet Coke, Coke Light." And he goes, "Is that all?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, then he came back, he goes, "Sure are you sure you don't want anything to drink, And I go, "Hell yeah, I want something to drink, but
not
I can't." Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Throw me a license, just do something. I said, "Hell yeah." So I tried to tell him afterwards, and my English was and I got a bad steak as well, because they charge you 5,200
I know.
pesos for one Kobe steak, and I didn't like it, and I was trying to whatever, and I said, "Hey, but also too, you know what?" I said, "I'm an alcoholic," and I said, "You're asking me if I want to drink 4 times doesn't help an alcoholic." SOB, and he didn't understand.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, well, and yeah. But anyway, that's great. Do you think John Daly will ever become sober?
John's had periods of sobriety in his life, but it doesn't suit him.
Yeah.
It doesn't suit him.
Gosh, that's crazy.
He's just fine. Johnny is, and my father was like this. He drank less and less as the years got by. He was an alcoholic, for sure. But it just sort of tapered off. As he got older.
Yeah.
And, I'm hoping that'll happen to me.
Yeah. God, man, I'll tell you what, it's unbelievable. But it's so great that Jack Nicklaus and Tom Watson thought of you enough to where they took you to a alcohol retreatment program right then.
Yeah.
And for Jack to,
No, I've been very lucky with the friends that I've made and the people that have cared about me over the years. If it weren't for them, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah, that is awesome. Good for you. Good to make friends like that, but good to have people in your back pockets, people you can call and get support from, and that's always good. So that's great. What else do you want to talk about? Is there anything else in particular that we haven't talked about? I know there was a lot of questions that we had that we were talking about. I want to make sure we talk about broadcasting, the Live Tour. What's it like being on the Live Tour? Is it different?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's been wonderful. There's just an added urgency to everything, that I never had before. The pace of play is faster. Mm-hmm. It's just
3 days instead of 4.
3 days instead of 4. There's a quicker rhythm to it. The shotgun start puts everybody on the golf course at the same time. No one has an advantage.
Yeah.
Where you get an early morning tee time or something.
Isn't that weird? The shotgun start.
I was dubious about it to start off with, but it really works. Mm-hmm. It really has worked. On the team aspect to it as well, I was skeptical about when I first started, but the players they're really invested in it. Mm-hmm. And, there's an elevated standard of play in team events, because you don't want to let your teammates down. You see it in Ryder Cup all the time. You see the most amazing golf. Guys making 7, 8 birdies in a row, things like that. I mean, there's definitely an added layer, with the team event at Live that has surprised me for sure.
Mm-hmm. You said you did it for the money, right? I mean, it's like they paid so well. It's like
absolutely. That was a big part of it. Greg picked up the phone and called me, and I had a year left with my contract at NBC, and they were kind enough to, again, I was lucky enough to be let out of that, and I basically went from the U.S. or from the Open Championship that Cameron Smith won to a couple of weeks later. One moment I was with NBC, the next, the snap of the fingers, and I was with Liv. It just happened kind of overnight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the biggest surprises you think that we're going to see going into 2024 between the PGA? You think they're going to combine at some point? I know that's kind of a topic.
I don't know, and I've spoken to a lot of people who should know, and they don't know either. It'll be interesting to see this amalgamation. I mean, how it's going to come together. I can't get my head around. There's one's a team, event, and there's individual aspect to it as well, of course. But the rest is pure stroke play. I can't get my head around it, to be perfectly honest with you. I'd love to be able to give you an answer, but no, I have no idea.
There's just so much money with Saudi Arabia and broadcasting and that whole dynamic part. Very extraordinary about what they can do, what they can't do, and what could happen. And it's like people never thought that this would happen with the Live Tour. It's like,
we're business as usual next year, 2024. We've got 14 events, 7 abroad, 7 in the continental U.S. Yeah. So it'll be the same.
14.
14. Yeah.
14 events. Wow. That's it. Good for you. Good for you. Making money and 14 events, and that's great.
I'm semi-retired, it seems.
Yeah.
At least it seems like that for, part of the year, but then when work starts up, it keeps me busy enough.
You're full on. That's good. So I'm trying to think of the Live Tour with the money they have, the PGA Tour. You probably have a lot of friends, or a lot of your older PGA friends that are still. They didn't like that. They don't like the Live Tour. Is that kind of a challenge with you today?
That sentiment has kind of died down, to say the least, because of what we've done for the PGA Tour. Mm-hmm. Since we showed up, the new kids on the block, or however you want to describe us, the PGA Tour has been forced to, up the ante for the players. Now, if you get your card, you're guaranteed, I think, $500,000, which is going to pay your expenses. The players have more of a control over their, name and likeness, that kind of thing, where they didn't have before. They're heading in that direction, so I don't think there's nearly the amount of animosity that there was to start off with.
Yeah. I remember hearing a lot of interviews a couple of years ago, and I forget who it was, and probably don't bring their name up because they're probably don't want me to think that they haven't changed their mind already. But I know that they were at first I don't know if it was because of the money or because of just Saudi Arabia. You've heard all the oil money and all the blood that goes with that, and it's like. But I think everybody's kind of settled down now.
That money is in sports throughout the world. Horse racing, Premier League, and there's it's not just us that's accepting this money. There's been a tremendous amount of sports over the years that the Saudi has supported.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I definitely agree. What would you tell? Last question, maybe, I don't know. What would you tell your 18-year-old self? Probably heard that question before, but one of my favorites for somebody like you.
Well, I'm not sure that I would say a word, because I wouldn't want to do anything differently. I know I made a lot of mistakes, and I did a lot of things that were detrimental to my health and my mental health and that kind of thing. But if I did anything different, I wouldn't be where I am right now.
Yeah.
And I'm in a great place. I've got a great wife who is just amazing, looks after, the business side of my, of my business, the day-to-day stuff. I haven't written a check in 30 years. I don't know where we bank. I just go to work in the morning, come back, and I get to spend a lot of time at home as well.
That's great. Yeah. That's great. Good for you. That's great. Good having that support in your wife and all that stuff. Yeah. That's funny. I'm the same way. My wife said something about somebody being on the phone. She needed to talk to me about one of the credit cards. I'm like, we have a credit card there? But that's good. I mean, you trust her, and you can handle your stuff, and which is good. It's helped you be who you are, which is awesome, which is good. Anything else you can think of that you'd like to share? just share with our younger listeners or somebody that says, hey, what if I wanted to go into broadcasting? Or what do you say when somebody says, how can I do what David Feherty does?
Yeah, you can't really unless you spend 20 years on tour. And, it's very difficult to break into these spots. There aren't that many of them.
Yeah.
For a start. And, starting as a course reporter or, the equivalent of a sideline reporter, that sort of thing, you really have to have the experience.
Right.
To know what players have felt, what they're feeling, and what's going on, where to stand, where to be, at any given time. It's if you wanted to do what I've done, then you'd nearly have to do the same thing. Leave school early.
Yeah.
Forget college, and just go. But if you do something that you love, I'm 65 now, and I haven't worked a day in my life.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. Good for you. Good for you. Well, we want to know more about your stand-up comedian. This guy he's really. We could have had a different version of the show, I guess, if we would have got some of his things that I've heard him talk about, and Preston trails or at dinners or at some of the stuff. But anyway, people need to reach out. David Feherty, need to listen to you. You've done a lot of different shows, stand-up comedian shows. Will that continue, and will you do some next year?
Yeah, I'm starting next year in April at Augusta, in downtown Augusta. There's a theater down there, so I do a 2-hour one-man show, and I've done 200 of them over the last 10 years. Throughout the country. Started in Canada. And sort of migrated down here with that act. And I'm sort of running out of places to play.
Wow.
Almost, in the continental United States. But, it's been a blast. Nothing, quite like the rush of, having 1,000 people there and being able to, being on top of them in these beautiful theaters, or having them on top of you, rather, 2 or 3 balconies and these old Art Deco theaters, like the Florida Theater or the Alabama Theater, or the Fox Theater in Detroit. It's just magnificent.
Right.
And, it's been a thrill for me over the last decade.
That's great. That's great. Well, David, I'll tell you, I want to respect your time. So I know that you've done this, and I really do appreciate you coming in and just sharing with your story with us, because, it is something that it's very difficult to get someone like you to come on a show like this and tell people what you think and how well you've done, the mistakes that you've made, things that you need to work on, things that, how hard it is to be sober, how hard it is to, to be in this place. But I really do appreciate you coming on and just talking to us and telling us all about the David Feherty that we all knew and we hope you would be. And you definitely are somebody that, I admire, and I look forward to hearing more about you in the future.
That was a pleasure.
Thank you very much, David.
Thanks,
appreciate it. Yeah.